Hola, ¿cómo están todos? Bienvenidos a esta nueva sesión que tenemos con un súper invitado. Vamos a arrancar esta tercera sesión de las pláticas y nos acompaña Steven, que él es un artista, un lead environment artist en Warner Bros. Games Montreal. Voy a pasarme ahorita aquí al inglés, la plática va a ser todo en inglés. Aquí pueden ustedes preguntarnos todo lo que quieran, podemos hacer encuestas. Y le comenté a Steven y él nos dijo que quería que la plática, si ustedes tenían preguntas, las hicieran ahí en el momento y lo íbamos a ir viendo. Steven, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we're
Thank you
really
for having
excited.
me. Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting. And there's a lot of students that want to become a game artist. So I think especially this session, we are starting really strong the first day of the event. And your talk is going to be one of the most watched, I'm sure. So
Cool. No pressure.
No pressure. So really quickly, Steven is from Jamaica. He's joining us from all the way from Montreal right now.
Yep, that's where I work currently.
He's currently working on Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna spoil anything else because sometimes I just keep talking and then he won't have anything to share. But so
no worry.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Everyone, if you have any questions, just start writing them down, and we're gonna share it with him during the talk or at the end. You don't have to worry, guys. We're gonna be checking on all that. And without further ado, thank you so much, Steven, for joining us. And the mic is yours. And
awesome.
Take it away.
Well, thank you for having me once again, German, Luis, and I think I saw Christina that was one of the hosts. Appreciate you guys. I feel more than comfortable to actually be up here to speak to you guys. Then just to jump straight to the point, I'm going to be talking about how to become a video game artist. Halfway in the literal approach, and then how the day-to-day life of how one would grow from not knowing any 3D to actually the comfort to create anything they want, literally. And in the fortunate time that we're in where we have so much tools available to us and networking, and I guess with COVID, it's created this big emphasis on digital communication across different countries, like right now, for example. Please don't hesitate to ask me any questions, everyone. I might push some to the end. I might push some of the answers during it, and let's start. So how to become a video game artist. I gave you guys a quick little introductory. My name's Steven Downer. I'm currently the lead level artist at Warner Bros. Games Montreal. And that's been my whole career. I've started there as a contractor, went to a junior, did the whole climbing the ladder, intermediate, senior, and I was fortunate enough to have enough trust and confidence to actually lead a lot of the environment art with some other leads on this project. I was actually born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. My background is Jamaican, and I'm currently living in Montreal, which is also in Canada. I went to two schools for 3D. I was really unsure of what I wanted to do. I always liked creating art. I did some 2D art. I did some 2D games. I did some website designing. I always just liked creating art, simple as that. And so, I'm like, let me go to school and study art. I was nervous, and I'm probably sure some of you can probably agree or relate or have some introspect is making money within the arts is very challenging. And so I didn't want to have that challenge for myself. So I went to school and I learned programming. And I think within 4 months that fell through. And I was like, nope, I do not enjoy programming. So let me go back to the arts, something I enjoyed. And I think that was a very good early life lesson. I still had to pay a lot of money for that programming course. It was only a semester, but I was fortunate enough I was able to get out and actually pursue something I can do for fun and as a job, whatever the money amount that came with it. Two of the schools I went to in Canada were George Brown College and Centennial College, both that were actually in the city of Toronto. A couple of games that I was fortunate enough to work on was Injustice 2. where I was character artist, environment artist, and I did props. I worked on Mortal Kombat 11. I stepped away from the character art and I was heavily a prop artist and an environment artist. So creating a lot of worlds from scratch. And currently, Gotham Knights. And this is where we've been working on the whole open world, and I've been doing a bit of everything except characters once again. And it's been very fun working on this title so far. I don't know if you guys have seen the recent trailers, which have been really cool. I suggest you guys check that out. Go to my next slide. Show you guys a couple of my personal projects I've worked on over the years to kind of always keep my tools sharpened, as I would say. Some character work I did for Injustice 2. This was Darkseid. I was responsible for the character, the rendering, the texturing, the modeling, and inputting it into the engine with a technical artist, along with making sure the rig was efficient enough for the multitude of animations that we had. The Batmobile, I think it speaks for itself. I think this is still one of my favorite things I've got to work on, to actually put my touch on something in the DC universe. Some environment work I did for Mortal Kombat. This was a very cool level. Had to design, make out the rough plays, and I was really allowed to have some flexibility on the design aspect and the narrative storytelling. Once again, some more Mortal Kombat. If you guys are familiar, this is Goro's Palace. Another chamber corridor. Another one of my favorite shots because it was very simplistic, and sometimes I like the simple stuff more than the complicated stuff. Some personal work. I took this from inspiration from a bit of God of War and a bit of Uncharted. And one of my recent projects was kind of me playing with more lighting and reflections. This is kind of an old cyberpunk-esque subway station underground. So back to the main topic at hand. So I'm just going to try and minimize my screen right now. How to become a video game artist. There's a lot of ways to answer that question. There's a lot of routes and methods to go for. I'm going to try and lean a bit more on my method while calling out some colleagues of mine that took their different paths. You have the traditional way, go to school. That kind of solves most of it. There's always YouTube, online resources. Some people get mentors. Some people do each of these individually. And then some people actually try and combine all three, which I think was my avenue when I didn't really know that at the time. I was just trying to do what I could do to better myself. So I went to school, then I started to use online resources very heavily. And then I had a mentor because I knew one of my teachers actually worked at the school. One of the teachers that worked at the school had a previous job at Rockstar that works on Grand Theft Auto. And he saw my work was good. He saw that I had the attitude to actually want to become better. And he just mentored me and said, hey, do this, do that. And I listened, and it, luckily enough, it landed me a job at Warner Brothers, which I'm very thankful for. The main things that you'll need to become a video game artist is a portfolio. Building a portfolio can be very nerve-wracking. I remember when I wanted to make my portfolio, I think I actually missed out on a job because I was too worried on making everything perfect. And I was trying to make everything look cinematic, like it was a movie, like this was my last time I was ever going to place art on my portfolio, and I couldn't get any better. And my one piece of advice for making your portfolio is that the quicker you can get stuff up, the quicker you can get feedback from within the community. I say ArtStation is a very strong place. There's all the top talent in the world. When I had an ArtStation, but I didn't have a portfolio because I was very nervous to post anything. I had all of my kind of top favorite artists. I'd follow them. I'd save their work as reference. And it was really great to come full circle to eventually be working with these people and be in contact with them. And I noticed with art, there's always has to be a stopping point where you just put it down to let it breathe. And that can be because you're going to come back after. or you're just going to leave it alone and work on something else to continue your growth. Even to this day, I think I still have one of my first props on my art station, just because it just reminds me of how far I've come and puts things into perspective. But if you want to get into the game industry, I say ArtStation is one of the first websites you guys should go to and just get lost in it. Look at the environments, the characters. They even have some design and tools on there that can help you guys out. I made a website as well. Some people prefer just a portfolio on ArtStation. I had a website design background, so I went ahead and made a website for myself. After that, the next step is understanding the type of game studios that are out there worldwide. We have the big ones like Ubisoft, EA, Eidos, Naughty Dog, Guerrilla, NetherRealm, Naughty Dog. And these are kind of the more mainstream studios that always have a big game that's always going to come out, like Last of Us, Horizon. I think recently Ubisoft, it wasn't an Assassin's Creed game. I can't remember what the recent game they launched, but it's always these big prolific games that everyone's always aware of. Eidos, I don't know if you guys have heard of Guardians of the Galaxy. That one's looking pretty cool. And the importance of researching these studios and actually knowing their head count, how much people they have in their studio, how often they post jobs online, and the kind of games they make as well. Because as you make your portfolio, it actually benefits you to sometimes say, hey, I see myself working on more of a nature-based game, something outside, more organic. By default, that would probably put you in the ballpark of Ubisoft, Guerrilla, Naughty Dog. And the good thing about that is going to raise your chances substantially. But at the same time, I'm going to say this again, it might lower your chance to work at EA or Eidos, but it never, ever eliminates that. I've seen everything in the industry. I hire people at work. I had an artist that worked on an organic game. I think it was Ancestors. I think we were based as an ape and you're in the jungle. And it's heavily organic. So lots of trees, plants, grass. That's kind of the gist of the game. And we hired an artist from there, and she turned out to be one of our very stronger artists working on a less organic city-based game, as you guys might have seen in the Gotham Knights trailer. And that's a great example to show you, just because you picked a path for yourself, it does not mean you've closed off all the other doors. It's just you're trying to leverage yourself all the time. And then some artists just know what they like. I have a friend that worked at Ubisoft for 12 years, and it was just Assassin's Creed, and Assassin's Creed. And that works for them. It's just like any other job. You're trying to find what works for you. Even though it's art, we're allowed to have preference on the type of art we make and how far we want to go with that. Just looking at some questions. When someone joins your team, what is the first thing they're tasked to do? Is it common to train them? And if you do, for how long? Or are they immediately tasked to do whatever they were hired for? So when we have a new hire, there's always a ramp-up time I have to allocate. Because I think with everything you need, it's just like in video games, there's a tutorial. When someone gives you a new phone, you have to read the manual, you have to play around with it. So we always give our artists some time to ramp up. And I believe all studios do this. Depending on the time of the project, sometimes we'll give them the task, but before we actually start gauging the time for the task, we'll say, hey, practice within the task. And then after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we'll get you to actually start doing the actual mandate of whatever was assigned to them. Can you share your website? Yeah, totally. Give me a second. The second question was, in such a big project, how do you start working? What's the first thing you start doing? How do you prioritize work? I'm going to answer this a little later in the presentation. I actually have a slide for that. I'm going to go to the next slide. Good questions, guys. Very good questions. Like I say, game studios are worldwide. The industry is full of variety. There's tons of small studios that are opening up these days. A lot of people doing a lot of indie projects. Epic Games is very, very gracious with the money they're handing out for people to actually start their own projects. It's good for the industry. A big question that's, I feel, is always asked. I think even when I first started in the industry, I was still asking myself this, what the difference was. I just had to like work throughout my task and work with people to fully understand it. A level artist. Long story short, a level artist is someone that kind of brings everything together. The level artist will communicate with the lighting department, the designing department, the visual effects, and a couple more. And they're supposed to put everything together. They're kind of the baker that's putting all the ingredients together at the end. They have to have a strong sense for composition. They work with the lead like me to know what to prioritize, to get feedback, to understand what the art direction is. But they're building everything together. Since the level artist has a lot of responsibility of trying to build everything, because that's a lot of different departments you have to talk to. It's a lot of bouncing around. We have people we employ that we call prop artists or architectural artists, or just people that are not doing the actual placing of the asset. They'll create these different pieces and they'll give these to the level artist. So if I'm making a building, I might have a prop artist make a door for me or a couple doors for me. And he'll tell me about those doors. And then that can help me speed up the process of my art process. Because it can be really time consuming if you're working on your composition and just stop fully to work on one asset or one door or something like that. So that's the difference between a level artist and a prop artist. Go to the next. Making 3D art for your portfolio. This is one thing I was always told, that it's a lot of work to try to add everything in your portfolio. When I was young, I didn't listen. I always liked to do a lot of stuff and I tried to do everything. And it wasn't in the best interest. I had myself split. I'm learning techniques for 3 different type of workflows. So I kind of narrowed myself down and said, hey, I want to do environments with prop making as well. And what was great is that I had all my energy and my resources into this one thing, that when I was finished, I felt confident with my environments and my props at the end. That then in my free time, I started to play around with vehicles and characters, testing out small techniques. And it gave me less stress because I wasn't trying to make every category at AAA level, which is very hard to do early in your career. Are there jobs in the industry that are oversaturated? And if there are there any which are really needed at the moment? I don't think there is any jobs that are oversaturated as yet, from my opinion. It's really about timing. When projects are near the end, because the studio has a full, we'll call them army of people like Ubisoft, that's when you won't see a lot of jobs be posted. It's just like any industry, it's all about timing. Hence why I made that example to when I was doing too much on my portfolio that I missed the opportunity to work at Ubisoft, which I'm not upset with the outcome personally, but at the time I was a little down on myself for that. I always say keep it simple but interesting. Another problem I had with being a young 3D artist is that I would look at movies and concept art and say, I want to make it all. I want to make the whole scene. I remember one time in class, because I was a little quick to learn 3ds Max and Blender and Maya, I just said, I want to make a space station. I want to make spaceships. I want to have asteroids. I want to have it animated and all that stuff. And then when I really got down into the thick of things, I realized I was over-scoping myself. And what that does, it gets you fatigued very early on. And then you start abandoning the project, or you're less inspired, or you feel overwhelmed. And that's something that can happen to anyone in any time in their career. I think it's just about understanding and being honest with yourself with the timeline. I think that's why I have an appreciation for those more smaller scenes. Like I showed you guys that corridor from Mortal Kombat, is that it's simple, but it looks good. You can make simple stuff look very, very, very impressive. And that will not deter a recruiter or a lead or an art director from wanting to work with you or wanting to have you work on their art and their project. Checking questions. Okay. So I always say keep it simple but interesting. It's always easier to add on to a smaller project than to reduce a large project, because it's always going to be that when you have a large project, you need everything to kind of bring it all together in the composition. Work smart and effective. As I was mentioning before, that we're in a very fortunate time that there's so much resources out there for you. When I was doing my portfolio, I was making every single prop down to the grass, the ceiling, the fire hydrant. I was remaking, I think I did like a whole little shack house, and I was remaking different walls. And there was I don't think there was a problem with me remaking stuff over and over. It's just that when it's a problem of continuing to do that forever. Like nowadays, if I'm doing a scene and I need a fire hydrant in it, I won't make a fire hydrant, because I feel that the more important props in my scene will highlight my skill set. So this, long story short, what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to build and complete everything in your scene, just the things that are going to showcase your talent. So like I said, if you're doing a corner of a city or an alleyway, maybe I don't need to make every garbage bag or every piece of trash or every dumpster. Maybe just making one dumpster, one garbage bag, and then copying some other ones to make the composition. Because there's a lot more after the props. It's always about lighting, composition, visual effects, framing, and that stuff can take a very long time. And even materials. As you guys saw, I do texture work sometimes, but a lot of times I'm just downloading textures off of a Substance Source just to help me speed up the process. Tips and tricks, I think I already went over that, is use the resources you have. ArtStation has a lot of free resources. Epic Games has a lot of free resources. Substance Source has a lot of free resources. I think GitHub is a 3D resource channel, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other CG websites out there that also provide free content, or even some premium content that might be actually worthwhile for what you're trying to create. I'm really interested in animation, but I never done anything like it, and I don't know how to. Would I have to learn on my own time, or would I be taught in college? I'm a senior in high school. You would definitely be taught in college, 100%. But for you to really stick out, it would be suggested for you to kind of take some time outside of school. Because I know I did a bit of animation. It wasn't my favorite subject. But even then, because I really wanted things to stick out, or I wanted to do something a bit different, that's when I would go to YouTube and figure out how to do other stuff at the same time. How do you manage stress in your team? How long did it take you to be the lead that the company wanted? Good question. It's time has flown by. I think I've been a lead for 2 years. My career has been 6 years, I think this month actually. And I was a stand-in lead for 6 months. So I think after 3.5 years, I got the offer to kind of take on the role and see how I feel about it before I got the official offer of it. So I think 3.5 years. And stress. My method, what I learned, because when you become a lead very early in your career, I had to figure out, I was trying to take things from previous leads or previous directors and try to use their methods. But I realized I needed to kind of create my own methods to make it feel genuine, since I'm me. And I think it was just being honest with your team. And when you're honest with your team, they will normally, most of the time, be honest back with you. And when they're honest with you, they'll say, "Hey, Steven, you're giving me too much work today." And I'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I got distracted. Let me rebalance that for you." Or if I'm working on something and I'm showing them how to art up something with my method, and I say, "Hey, I just did something cool. Can you guys copy me?" And sometimes they'll say, "Hey, that's cool, but Can I change something about it? And I'm always open to feedback from my team, as the same way that they're taking feedback from me. I don't make it a one-way conversation. It's a two-way conversation. I think that's the end goal, and that really makes a lot of the stress go away, to be honest. And I encourage them to play video games, especially our own video game. A lot of times when we're working, we forget to play the game. And I say, hey, let's use the whole 2-3 hours this morning. Let's just play the game. Take our time and just play it. And I think that helps a lot. It brings a lot of smiles and laughs inside of our meetings. And yeah, it helps. As I was saying, use shared materials. These are some materials I made in the past. Stuff like metal, bricks, things that repeat a lot. There's no shame in just grabbing that. If you do not want to be a material artist, you want to be a level artist, then it's always great to just grab resources that you know you're not going to want to create in your career. I'm going to talk a bit about some of my workflows, programs used, specifically for these assets I did on Injustice 2. So I always like to experiment with different programs to play with the workflow, and it just helps me to communicate with my team members so I can suggest different methods to them, because everybody does things in their own way. The prop above, it was 3ds Max. I modeled the low and high res in Max. I use Max to unwrap. Sometimes I use Maya to unwrap as well. It has a very strong unwrapping program. Substance Painter to bake and texture it all, which used to be algorithmic, but now Adobe, Photoshop, the Photoshop company, they bought them. And Unreal Engine for the final destination in the game, or sometimes I'll just render it in Marmoset, or sometimes I'll render it inside of Unreal Engine. The prop displayed below, I kind of switched up things. I really wanted to challenge my workflow. I use ZBrush for the whole high poly and low poly. Then I went back to 3ds Max to unwrap, and I actually tried unwrapping in ZBrush. It's okay. It's just not for me. And then the same final steps, Substance Painter for baking, texturing, and Unreal Engine for the final destination. A great way to work smart is, if any of you have played around in 3D, is what I used to do is in my high poly, I would try to get all my information. So on the right side of my screen, this is my high poly. And as you guys, that would be younger Steven, I'd call him. But nowadays I realized I didn't need all of my information in my high poly, meaning I don't need every little scratch, every dent, every piece, all the grass or the moss. I don't need to put all that information in the high poly. As you guys can see, oh, I think I went too far. I only put the big, meaningful dents. The leaves up here, these ears are very smooth in my high poly. And that left room for me to play around with the surface noise here in my texture and pass. And this can be very powerful, because if I did all of this in high poly and it turned out bad, I would have to go all the way back to my high poly to readjust stuff, and that can burn a lot of time really quick. So micro details can be added later. After this pandemic started, and now, do you prefer to have interactions online or physical with your team? Both, I'll be honest. At first, when pandemic happened, I was not a big fan of working from home. I did not like working online at all. And I came to peace with it. I just realized that I never did it before. There's a different norm for me. And I started to enjoy it a lot. But I guess now that restrictions are easing up, I've had a couple meetups with my team, and I actually miss working with them in the office. It was funny enough, I think just last week or 2 weeks ago, I sent an email to work so I can actually do a day or two, maybe 3. I'm going to test it out. I'm going to slowly ease myself back in. But to do a balance of working at home and in the office, I feel like it brings perks all together. Where I don't know if you guys, well, we have winter over here in Canada. And I think that's one of the big reasons we're working at home during the winter, if I can, is a big benefit. But I'll still go into the office a day or two just to kind of mix it up and have that real life physical interaction. How is the job market now that we are still on pandemic time? Very strong. If you guys haven't heard, video games have been breaking dozens of records for the last 5-6 years conveniently. And I think during the last 1.5 to 2 years, due to COVID, all those records were shattered again, from amount of sales, games being replayed, games being bought. Yeah, it's very impressive of how far and how alone games are in this new hierarchy of media. Let's go to my next page. Another tip, if you guys haven't heard of a software called PureRef, it's an awesome software I use to grab myself reference. Anytime I work on anything, and even if I tell my artists, I say it's always mandatory concept with some references for small micro details. If there's no concept, then we need to have reference, just to help with direction, puts things in scale, and just so you know, just make sure you're not going a little too off the chart. So PureRef, it's a free program actually, and it's very cool. And I can give you guys the link for that. You don't need to register with your email or anything as well, which I'm pretty sure as students, some of you guys are probably annoyed with always having to give your personal information. I just put it in the link. Example of the workflow. I think there was a question earlier talking about how do we know what to work on? I'm just going to scroll back. So in such a big project, how do you start working? What's the first thing you start doing? How do you prioritize work? So that's honestly at the beginning of any project, that's always the questions we ask, and we work together to answer it. But at the beginning of a project, it's a lot of concepts, a lot of high level ideas, inspiration. And then we start doing something called proxies. We do these for props. We do these for cinematics. We do these for levels. An example here, here's a proxy level, something built in Unreal to actually understand the space. This helps with the game design as well. For more artistic reasons, we still do proxies, as it's going to help with understanding the space, the depth, the silhouette, how much work something might actually, how much work something might actually entail. There's a proxy pass I did for an environment I worked on. It helped me understand how extreme my goal was. I remember at first when I did this area was much more bigger. And then when I made the proxy size, I'm like, okay, Steven, you need to calm down and just downsize. So this is my proxy pass. And I made sure I stayed loyal to it. And here was the final output of it. And if you guys notice, I kept the cliff on the left, on the right, on the left and the right side. I kept the depth of the wall in the back, and I just made it pretty. Long story short. So at the beginning, that's literally the first step. We're doing a lot of proxy, a lot of block out, a lot of rough work, and then it's just back and forth, cleaning up design, figuring out how we can make the gameplay more cooler. And that's what really stretches out game design, the size of it, and really iterating a lot. What's the most satisfying project that you worked on? I'd say right now, Gotham Knights. It's such a large scale, and I think just helping my team members achieve what the art direction and game design wants for the game. It's a very satisfying feeling, and there's a lot to do when you look at these open world games these days. And it's fun. It has its rough times, has its up times. It's about kind of staying level-headed all the time. But I'd say Gotham Knights so far. We'll see what knocks that one out in the future. Another tip: always make a list of the assets you want in your scene. I always do this at the beginning because it can really help me see if I'm going to have overkill on work. This is an example of a lot of assets I use in a very small scene, and it can really help me picture things like, okay, what am I going to make? What am I going to borrow? What can I change the color on and reuse? So there's a lot of value in making an asset list from the very beginning. Another tip I feel that is very underrated in the industry to this day is the amount of free software and resources. I think when I just got into the game industry, free software and resources just began to start rolling out. And it's still rolling out to this day. And if something's not free, I believe the prices have been made very, very, very low. Especially using your student, you're a student, I say use that as an advantage. You can get lower subscription prices for ZBrush. If you guys see Algorithmic, I think this is Substance Painter. I still call it by the old name before Adobe bought them. We have Substance Designer, we have Sampler, Stager. I think each of these are around $10 or $15 a month subscription, but realistically, you only need one of these. At the top, Unreal Engine is free. I'm a big advocate for Unreal Engine. I say everybody just download it, download the free stuff and just play around with it and see what you can do. 3ds Max, Maya, 3D softwares. You have to subscribe to it for, I think, around $15 a month. But Blender, that's a big program that's coming out. Well, I think it's already come out and they've been pushing the mandate on their software. And even I think it's free and there's open source. So there's a lot of crazy plugins to make it work very, very to your discretion and how you feel. And YouTube, I think we all know YouTube. Honestly, I think to this day I use YouTube. YouTube tutorials, like it's if they made YouTube premium and I had to subscribe, I don't think I would look at the price. I would just pay and then complain about the price after as I use it. I'm gonna check the price. I'm gonna check the questions. Speaking of detail, how much detail is too much detail? Are there times where you can get centered or trying to get one piece perfectly that takes time away from other work? Yeah, all the time. I feel like that's going to be a age-old battle for artists, that you're always going to try everything perfect. I think even if I can go back to one of my Mortal Kombat scenes, I think in this scene was a great example of I put too much detail into something. I had this very cool dragon. If you know Mortal Kombat, their emblem has a dragon on it. So I made this cool thing at the top. And every time my guy would walk on this path, the camera would cut off the whole design at the top. And so I'd keep going up there and I move it down an inch, go back and test the game, look forward. I can't see it. And I did that for probably 2 days. And to the point where I just had to say, okay, Steven, it's not going to work. Let me leave it up there and hope that maybe they do a cinematic or someone else sees it. But even when I play the game, I don't even see it. But to answer how much detail is too much detail, the only way to know is to understand what you're creating your scene for, or your prop. As you guys know, with props nowadays, you take screenshots of them. Even environments, you take screenshots of them. Some people like to do videos of it, which is totally fine. But I would always say only art what the average player is going to see. And I'd say always leave micro detail to the very end, because if your large shapes and your medium shapes and your lighting is very sufficient and strong and you spent time on that, then you'll know where to put the small details. I think we call it polish in the industry. That's what we do at the last stage of any video game. We do our VFX, our lighting, our full art pass of shapes, large and medium. And then when we get all that together, we review stuff. And then this is where we put the small details in to kind of see what's worth it, what's not worth it, what's the player going to see, what am I going to show in my portfolio, and so forth. Questions, guys? Proxy, asset list. Other than that, I think that's the main tips for how to become a video game artist. It's use school to your advantage. The thing I enjoyed about school is that it kept me on a very strict schedule, because I know when you work on stuff yourself, you can kind of make your own schedule. Even when I do my own projects to this day, I'm like, oh, I'll do it next week. When you have school, that kind of puts you in a work-minded situation. Free software, teaching yourself, that's a big method now. I think one of my ex-coworkers, he's an art director now at Counterplay. He learned everything about lighting and 3D modeling himself. I think he got a job back in the day at, I want to say THQ. He's older than me. And he said, yeah, I just went online. And then after that, when I made my first portfolio, I reached out to some people online and they were able to mentor him. He said some people were too busy, some people weren't. He paid some people to mentor him. And yeah, I think it's really just about getting started and putting yourself out there. As artists, we're going to be the biggest critiques of ourselves, which is good. And sometimes it could be a bit, how can I say, time consuming. I know it can be for myself. Other than that, you guys have any more questions or? Normalize. I just saw an awesome comment. Normalize not having to sign up with an email. The amount of times I signed up with for an email for something, and then I only use it for 14 days, and then I have to keep deleting the emails in my primary box or send it to spam.
Let's see.
Just gonna go to the next slide. I recently just launched my mentoring website, funny enough. I focus on level art, environment art, prop making for portfolios, even people in the industry. And in honor of a German inviting me to this talk, I actually gave you guys a nice discount, 50% off to the first 5 to book the Focused or the Epic Mentorship. The Focus Mentorship is an hour Q&A where we can look at something you possibly already made and give you feedback on how to polish it or bring it up to a higher standard. The Epic membership is a bit more detailed and aggressive. It's 3 hours. And this is where we actually can make a plan for you, take references, look at what you want to make, break down the list. We can kind of work together to see what's off, what's worth it, what's not worth it. And then I still offer an intro discussion, which is I put it as free because I feel like it's always great to know what product or who you're going to be working with. So you guys can book that there on the website. And like I said, 50% off for the Focus and Epic membership for the first 5 of each. So that's Focus AL4 and Epic AL4. And then overall, in case anybody misses those first 2 deals, I have 25% off both of those for just the next 30 days. And the code for that would be Animation L4. There's no first come, first serve. It's just going to be for the next 30 days. So I felt that was fair to kind of put that in there for everybody. And yeah, maybe I could put the link in the comments for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Steven. While you write down the link, if anybody has any other questions,
I think I see some questions.
Couple here, yeah.
Can intensive criticism affect how a project turns out? For example, if a trailer does badly, do you stick to your original vision? Not to tap myself on the back, but I think I'm fortunate. I haven't been in that situation yet. I've heard from friends that I've heard both sides of the story. Sometimes they go confident in the forward direction that they can sell the consumer after. I don't know if you guys heard of Metal Gear Solid Online. Unfortunately, I was a big fan of that whole series, and then when Kojima left, the whole drama thing. And if you guys look at IGN, I think it has the most dislikes for a video game trailer in history on their website. They still try to push it out. I think the game sells, and the studio rep will answer the rest for you. I know some games actually have changed. I know a big thing is Apex with EA. They aggressively change everything. So keep it simple, yes and no.
Perfect. This is in Spanish. It says that was it difficult to get your first job without having any experience?
Yes and no. What I learned, because I had my mentor, and I think it took me years to understand until I became a lead. So it was hard because I had to really keep pushing my work, polishing it. Something I feel that gets undersaid a lot in the industry or for 3D art. It's not about doing something once. It's about how much can you do it over and over and over and over till it's perfect, till it's not perfect, till it's substantial or it's good. And I say that's going to be the make or break if for you to break into the industry or not. If you can take the feedback, apply it, take the feedback and apply it. I think that's why my directors trust me, because I take a lot of feedback from them and I have to break it down and not take it personal, understand it's just for the greater of the game. It's a team thing. It's not an individual thing. If that answers the question.
Yes.
Yeah. So it depends on you. It's not like, if I go back, sorry. I've had portfolios that are amazing. Like they're literally like, I'll put it top 5 portfolios I've seen in my life. But unfortunately, sometimes the artist does not want to work, or they want to do things their own way. They don't want to work as a team in a project. And I've known other people that would prefer not to hire someone that's not for the project or easier to work with. So it's not always about having the best art in the world. There's 2 sides. There's a people person, and then there's the art side. Yeah.
Awesome. We did a couple of pools here, Steven.
Oh, I didn't even see. I can't keep up.
So this
So much
one
tabs.
is about do you share your work online? And while you were talking about this subject, so the majority says that they do, and after this they will. And there was no, I would never do it, so it's good.
Nice. After this, I'm happy to see the 29.17%.
Yes.
Very
and
happy
we have
to see
another
that.
one final one.
I just saw it, I think.
So this is a good one. So you get a very good response.
What's my my Metacritic, as they call it?
It's going up. So it's great. And well,
I see there's another one. How do you manage to work with non-teamwork people? We try to mold them. We try to work with them to understand that it's like in any job. I don't think there's no job in the world out there, even the CEO of a company, he has to work with people. I would actually ask, how does the non-teamwork people work with people? But I try to make it work. I try to be honest. That's life. You're gonna bump into people that you might bump heads with, but I think the best outcome is going to be determined on how you take it. If you can just make your judgment and your actions for the greater good of the situation. Don't play that game, I guess, would be my advice on that. Yeah, I think that's how I manage. I just manage.
Great. Well, I think if anybody has any questions, I think we have a couple of minutes, but in the meantime, while we wait, if anybody wants anything else.
Does anybody have questions about the website even? I can probably knock that out now, or...
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Guys, if you have any questions, there is a...
maybe I can share it on my side.
Yes.
I don't have the questions tab open, so please just shout at me. Share. If you guys see my screen right now?
Yes.
Awesome. I made the website pretty straightforward. I didn't want to make it too noisy. Eventually, I'm going to have a couple artists come on to help me with the mentorship when it starts to get a little too busy. We have the services at the top here.
Perfect. I think that So it's pretty simple. The website is Game Art Pro. You can search
Yeah.
it, but we're going to include it on the links. And once we finish all the information about the Congress, we're going to put all the info from all the speakers.
That's
So
awesome.
I think that there's no more questions, but the ones that came out were pretty interesting. And
yeah, very detailed.
we really want to thank you, Steven, because having your experience, it's always great to share with the students. We have
Appreciate it.
one that says here that how was working with Mortal Kombat 11. I think.
How was it?
How was it? Yeah.
Awesome. I think we all saw Mortal Kombat as a kid, so that was a curve. That was one of the good curveballs in life. Working on Mortal Kombat 11, it's you're seeing all the gore day to day instead. But it was awesome. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. I think we're out of time right now.
Yeah. No worry.
Steven, thank you so much. I think.
No. Thank you, Lewis and German. I really appreciate you guys bringing me out. It was awesome.
Thank you, and we're gonna share all the information from the website. Thank you for the discounts that you're offering to the students. That's a really good discount. And guys,
I was a student before. It's fun times.
Yes, that's correct. So I think a lot of the advice that you gave, it's gonna be very helpful because sometimes we don't know. I mean, we're learning all the important stuff in the school, but then we don't know. Okay, should I focus on this or that? And coming from you, gives you perspective and know where to go to. So depending on what they want to do. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. The next session is gonna be at 4, so you have 1 hour. Thank you so much, Steven. I hope the weather is good. Here it's pretty nice and warm, but I'm not sure in Canada. But
don't remind me, please. It's sad outside.
But hopefully next year, every year we do this Congress, and next year with the pandemic getting under control, we would love to have you here. We'll keep in touch, awesome, and
definitely.
If there is a chance, we'd love to have you here as our guest.
That'll be great. That'll be fun. Awesome. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks again, German, Lewis. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Download Unreal 4 now.
Yes, go for that. Thank you.
Cheers.
See you, everyone. Bye-bye.